Your mechanic has seen this number. Your Toyota dealer hasn't told you about it. And if you own a RAV4, it might just be the reason. You get a lot less for it than you think when you finally sell. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one says out loud. Trusted and the car still running strong past 500,000 kilometers are not the same promise. Every Aussie family that's bought a RAV4 because everyone says they last forever has actually never checked whether that's still true. And there's one car further down this list, sitting at number 2, that even die-hard Toyota owners are going to find hard to argue with, because it's still a Toyota, just not the one you were told to buy. This 4-family SUVs, all sold here in Australia right now. All of them quietly outlasting the RAV4 once the odometer keeps climbing. Stick around, because number 1 is going to surprise you completely. Number 4, Subaru Forester. This is the one that trips people up every single time, because on paper, the Forester looks unremarkable. It isn't fast, it isn't flashy, but mechanics who work regional Victoria and New South Wales will tell you something the brochures never mention. Subaru's Boxer engine and symmetrical all-wheel drive layout sit the drivetrain's weight low and centered in the car. On smooth city roads that barely matters. On the corrugated back roads that make up so much of rural Australia, it matters enormously. It takes pressure off the suspension and CV joints that would otherwise wear down over hundreds of thousands of kilometres. Compare that to the RAV4's CVT transmission on earlier models, which independent mechanics report can start showing stress under sustained high load conditions, well before the 300,000 kilometres mark. The Forester isn't dramatic about it, it just keeps going. And here's a detail that rarely makes it into Australian conversations about this car. The same Forester platform, with nearly identical mechanical bones, is sold in Japan, the US, and Europe. That means Australian owners are plugged into a global parts and repair knowledge network that smaller, more niche competitors simply can't match. Head over to American Subaru owner forums and you'll find something genuinely striking. Foresters documented well past 400,000 kilometres, with nothing more heroic done to them than regular oil changes and timing belt services. That's not a marketing claim. That's owners posting their actual odometers. And once you start looking for it, the pattern doesn't stop at one country. Talk to Subaru specialists in New Zealand, where conditions on gravel high country roads are just as unforgiving as anything in regional Australia. And you'll hear the exact same story. Foresters quietly outliving cars that were supposed to be tougher on paper. It's a small detail, but it tells you this isn't a fluke limited to one market. It's a design decision playing out the same way everywhere it's tested. Number 3, Mitsubishi Pajero Sport. If you've spent time around Australian mine sites, cattle stations or outback tourism operators, you already know exactly why this one made the list. The Pajero Sport is built on a ladder frame chassis, the same underlying architecture as the Triton Ute. And that single engineering decision changes everything about how it ages compared to a unibody SUV like the RAV4. Ladder frame construction shrugs off the kind of punishment Australian conditions dish out. Relentless corrugations, brutal heat cycling, water crossings, and years of towing. A camper trailer to the coast every summer without complaint. In Western Australia's mining regions, mechanics have pointed to the Pajero Sport's diesel drivetrain for years as one of the toughest combinations sold here, with high kilometre examples still clocking on for daily fleet, and station work well beyond anything a typical family SUVs is ever asked to handle. It won't ride as smoothly as a RAV4 through the suburbs, and that's precisely the trade-off on offer. Everyday comfort exchanged for structural resilience that pays off 2 decades down the track. Now here's something I genuinely want to hear from you. If you've owned a ladder frame SUV past 300,000 kilometres, a Pajero, a Prado, a Patrol, what was the first major component that actually gave out? Put it in the comments, because the answers on videos like this one almost never match. what the dealership brochures quietly imply. Number 2. Toyota Land Cruiser Prado. Yes, still a Toyota, and that tells you something important right off the bat. It isn't that Toyota builds unreliable cars. It's that Toyota builds different cars for different jobs. And the RAV4 was never engineered with the same brutal, no-frills simplicity as the Prado's drivetrain. For decades, the Prado has been the backbone of Australian outback tourism, remote community logistics, and even overseas military and aid agency fleets across Africa and the Middle East. Vehicles pushed to failure points most Australian family buyers will never come close to. That real-world torture testing on the other side of the planet feeds directly back into the engineering sitting in the driveway of a suburban Toyota dealership today. Australian four-wheel drive workshops routinely see well-maintained Prados, particularly diesel variants, pushing past 300,000 kilometres, with plenty of documented examples running strong toward the 500,000 mark when serviced on schedule. Compare that to the RAV4, whose CVT-based drivetrain is smooth and efficient for the school run and the shopping centre car park, but was never built for the sustained, heavy load, high heat, long distance duty cycle that defines so much of regional and rural Australian life. And this is where it stops being just a mechanical story and starts being a financial one. A high-kilometre Prado with full service history still commands strong money in the private market because buyers trust that drivetrain to keep going. A high-kilometre RAV4 often depreciates more sharply once it crosses certain thresholds because buyers, fairly or not, start factoring in CVT concerns. Whether that's entirely fair to modern RAV4 models is genuinely debatable, but perception moves resale price just as much as engineering does. And that's a financial reality every RAV4 owner deserves to know before trade-in day, not after. And that brings us to the entry that flips this whole conversation on its head, because up until now, every car on this list has been the expected tough choice. What comes next isn't Number 1, Nissan Patrol. And here's the one that might sting the most, because for decades this has been the RAV4's quiet, unglamorous rival in the exact conversation nobody wanted to have out loud. The Patrol was never built to be comfortable in a shopping centre car park. It was built for stations, mine sites, and outback tracks where breaking down simply isn't an option. That philosophy shows up in the engine bay. Older mechanically injected Patrols, and particularly the legendary TD42 diesel, were engineered with a level of brute simplicity that modern turbocharged, sensor-laden engines can't match. And that simplicity is exactly why so many of them are still running, well past 400,000 and 500,000 kilometres, with nothing more than disciplined servicing behind them. This isn't folklore. Owner forums across Australia are full of real examples. A 1997 GQ Patrol sold with 410,000 kilometres on the clock and still running strong. Other diesel Patrols pushing past 380,000 with nothing but routine maintenance. Buyer's guides covering the model describe it in blunt terms: legendary reliability, mechanical simplicity, and diesel engines capable of exceeding 500,000 kilometres when properly cared for. Here's the twist that makes this one sting a little more than the rest. The Patrol has spent years living in the Land Cruiser's shadow, treated as the tough but unrefined alternative for people who couldn't stretch to a Toyota badge. And yet, kilometre for kilometre, it's held up against exactly the same brutal conditions. Corrugated roads, remote station, relentless heat. If you've ever dismissed a Patrol as the budget choice next to a Prado, this is the moment to reconsider that entirely. Think about what that actually means for the family who bought the safe badge instead. 2 neighbours, 2 SUVs, 2 decades of ownership, one driving a car everyone assumed was bulletproof, the other driving the one people quietly joked about at the pub. Fast forward to the odometer crossing 450,000 kilometres, and it's the Patrol still rolling out of the driveway every morning without drama. No, that's definitely not a coincidence. That's what happens when an engine is built to survive. rather than built to impress on a showroom floor. What it all means for you. Here's the pattern tying all 4 of these cars together. A pattern the RAV4 simply doesn't share. Mechanical simplicity. Weight distribution built for rough roads. Drivetrains tested in genuinely punishing conditions. Outback stations, mine sites, overseas military duty, or decades-old engineering philosophy, long before they ever rolled onto a suburban driveway. To be fair to the RAV4, it remains an excellent, dependable car for the vast majority of Australian owners doing typical suburban and highway kilometres. But typical and extreme longevity past 500,000 kilometres are 2 very different tests. If you're the kind of owner who plans to keep a car for 15 or 20 years, or you're buying used and want the strongest possible odds of avoiding an expensive drivetrain failure down the track, these 4 alternatives deserve a genuinely serious look. And that's really the lesson underneath all of this. It was never that the RAV4 is a poor choice. It's that reputation and longevity data don't always line up the way marketing suggests. And the smartest Australian buyers are the ones who look past the badge everyone assumes is safest and ask what the engineering, the fleet data, and the workshops are actually telling them. It's the difference between buying the car everyone talks about and buying the car mechanics actually trust when nobody's watching. Do that and you won't just buy a car that runs. You'll buy one that's still running long after everyone else on your street has traded theirs in twice over. If this changed how you'll look at your next used car listing, you know what to do. Watch this video popping up on your screen right now, where I break down 6 cars that need the least repairs and are the best fit for older drivers. I'll meet you there.